I'm afraid I've covered a lot. There's a lot more that I wanted to cut or wanted to talk about, and I actually cut probably about 30 minutes from my talk. If you have any questions about the topics I covered, about Satanism in general, I'm more than happy to entertain them. Anybody?
I'm interested in your relating people to animals, and if we're herd animals, why do you not follow the herd and just go with whatever is the thought of the day? And I think that's
boring as shit.
Maybe, if we are animals, then what is animal? It's like, isn't every animal specific? And don't humans have specific things that are part of them, just like a goat has specific parts or a bear has specific?
Certainly, but not all goats act the same. Not all bears act the same. We have, though our little buddies are wonderful friends, and certainly there is a spectrum of intelligence. There's a spectrum of what we would consider consciousness. Humans are different from most other animals in the extreme of that spectrum. There's no other creature on this planet that has created a wonderful plate of lasagna. So there are things that will entertain us and find that lust, that drive that will inspire us to do different things. And maybe in the Darwinian evolutionary sense, maybe Satanism isn't adaptive. Maybe it's a mutation. Maybe there is a biological source of it. I'm willing to entertain that notion. There's a saying in Satanism that Satanists are born, they're not made. This reflects back to the idea of there is no big conversion. It's something that people come to when they see, okay, this is the name for what I feel, for how I see the world, and they can choose to adopt it or not. Does that, at all answer?
I think in a way, yeah.
Okay. Well, in a way, it's just going to be good enough for me. As I say, half-ass is better than no ass at all.
You said to be a Satanist, you don't have to believe in a supernatural Satan, but do some Satanists believe that they're really believe in Satan, like how people believe in God?
Well, in Anton LaVey's, in the philosophy that he codified, I would say within that framework, no. Does that mean that there are no people that believe, that have a literal belief in a deity of Satan? Of course there are. Of course there are. There are people that believe. I mean, look at any major world religion. Christianity is the obvious. It's the predominant religion in our society. And look at the extremes of belief within that framework. I mean, there are so many denominations of Christianity and Catholicism. And they all think each other is the Antichrist, that the other is going to hell because of some wording in some, obscure part of the Bible or some sort of papal bull or whatnot. There's going to be, but, whether that's really Satanism or not, I would say no. To believe in a literal being. I'm sure there's been plenty who have.
Because with the performance of rituals, is it a performance to yourself, or so it's not like a performance to the actual being of Satan?
No, it's for yourself. I mean, you can, there is no external deity. There is no, there is no consciousness outside. There's no Jungian, super conscious that everybody is somehow linked into, not in any kind of a literal or supernatural sense, from my belief, of course. It's drama. It's just like if you, as an art school, how many of you play instruments, or you ever gotten really into playing a song and it becomes something else. You've practiced it. You've mastered it. You've experienced mastery over that piece of music, and you have a feeling that is out of the ordinary. It is above your common experience. But it is not supernatural. It's still using the meat that we are made up of. Is that?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that, well, at the very end you said that maybe it was called other things at different times, and that Satanism is named in the language of, I guess, the dominant religion,
Sure.
Satanism, but that we don't necessarily have to believe in Satan. Satanists. So, I'm wondering if maybe another word for it is just like realism or something.
It's not as catchy, though, is it?
It's
not as sexy. I like realism. I consider myself a realist. I consider myself. There's a lot of terms that I would use in different situations. As I said in my talk, there's knowing when to tuck in the Baphomet. This is a Baphomet, and sometimes you have to talk to people in a language that they understand. Here, I've been asked to talk about Satanism, so I spoke explicitly in the words that I use, and I use the definitions on how I understand those words. But if I was in casual conversation with you, if I wasn't wearing the Baphomet, I might describe my Weltanschauung. Love those Teutonic. I might describe it as using words that you would understand. There's Irving Goffman wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. It's fascinating. It's about this idea that the world is a stage and you're kind of an actor in it, the Shakespearean thing, but he expands that into kind of this sociological concept.
Because, while I think I agree with a lot of the points you bring up, I wouldn't go as far as to label myself something,
Sure.
And it seems like to label yourself a Satanist goes against the tenets of Satanism. It's sort of like...
It got me a lecture. It's gotten me...
I'm not trying to...
No. And I'm being a bit flip, but I know I take your statement seriously, and I agree. In the talk I talked about, there was a quote from Peter Gilmore about the membership of the Church of Satan is an iceberg, and most of its membership is hidden. Most people don't publicly identify as Satanists. Most people, I've met plenty of them myself. So you can accept. I've more or less gotten rid of the word believe, saying I believe. I like the word accept, because there's no implication that I've made some sort of leap of faith to come to a conclusion. Because if I've thought about something, if I really considered something, if I've studied it, then I accept something as being true, though new evidence may change that. So, Machiavellian philosophy, no Machiavellian would ever call himself a Machiavellian unless he was writing a book about Machiavelli, about using Machiavellian principles. You would posture as an egalitarian in today's society. You would posture as an egalitarian, as somebody who, believes the standard tropes of today. You would never call yourself a Machiavellian.
Yeah, but
there are lots of people in my life that have no idea I'm a Satanist, and I feel no.
To say I'm a Satanist is maybe it's to go to be a little bit political, just to position yourself in opposition to the dominant beliefs, just to publicize that you are like a free thinker or something, or like that you kind of exist. You present yourself as I don't know, I'm having a hard time.
Okay. Do you want to come back to it?
Yeah.
So can I just add something? I think what struck me was that you've also had a lot of similarities with existentialism or nihilism, or particularly with the existential idea that there's nothing outside of humanity. There's no God. There's no spiritual level. There's nothing supernatural. And therefore, the onus falls on you to create your own life, and there are no, you still have to kind of live with a morality, but it's your own morality. I mean, for example, you chose to get married rather than, to be wildly sexually promiscuous or,
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's still like a choice that I've made. This is my morality.
And I've come to that decision based on my own consideration and not those of others applying that to me.
Yeah, but it's still I guess it's still like a conventional choice, but it's a choice that
Convention tradition can work.
Yeah.
There are many traditions that are perfectly pragmatic or fulfill. I mean, you can't overturn every single thing. There would be nothing of value, because just because something exists doesn't mean that it's wrong or needs to be changed. It needs to be overturned if it's a lie.